Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Shared Discovery, the show and podcast dedicated to sharing all the exciting and enjoyable aspects of games and gaming. I'm your host, Victor, and today I'm once again joined by my returning guest, Xander, co-host. How you doing? How have you been?
Pretty tired.
Tired? Why are you tired? What have you been playing?
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah?
A ton of it.
A ton of it. What, trying to do what?
Completing all the shrines.
Yes, a monumental task that you're trying to do in preparation of, what's the new one called?
Tears of the Kingdom.
Yes, so you're trying to be ready for that. That comes out, this might date the episode, but that comes out tomorrow. Yes. So that's cool. That's been keeping you awake at night. I'm still on my hunt to complete all of the dex entries in Pokemon Legends Arceus before I start the game.
Yeah, and you found that.
This is awesome. I found a cheese, right? So in the start of the game, you can't get across the water until you progress a little bit. But there's one Pokemon called B-Barrel that's water type. You can throw it in the water, you can get 6 of them, and you can make a bridge. It's called B-Barrel Bridge. You walk across it, and it opens the world for you.
You turn into Jesus.
Yeah, it's great. So I haven't tried it yet. I tried one, and I stood on it, so I think it might work. So that's been keeping me busy. I've been having a lot of fun with that. You inspired me with your Pokemon episode idea, so a lot of fun with that. So what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about open world games.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I, we were talking about this. We wanted to talk about genres, styles of game, play styles, and where to start, right? Open world games. We've had so much fun with those throughout our lives. Breath of the Wild's your favorite game.
Yeah.
So we thought this was a natural start.
Yeah, and it was also my first one.
Yeah, your very first open world game. Why is it your favorite? What keeps you playing it?
Because of how vast it is. There's also the music.
Yeah.
Music that keeps me wanting to listen to it.
I know you always show up and you're like, here, listen to this song. This plays in one little room in this village. This is the only place this song plays, and it's great. That's awesome. My first open world game was actually Legend of Zelda, the very first one from 1986. I played the remake for the Game Boy. Yeah, so I played it when I was 7, so I had no idea what I was doing.
Do any of us?
Right, and I didn't realize how influential it is. Until doing this research, I didn't realize how influential the original Legend of Zelda is to the open world genre. So I would say it's not my favorite anymore. That I've struggled to figure out what that is. However, as we did the research, like where do I land?
Yeah,
it's hard. Skyrim's great.
Skyrim's always been great.
It's always great, especially with the modding community out there. I'd say probably my most played one is World of Warcraft. So maybe that is my favorite because of playtime.
I mean, you also have the...
Yes, I have the board game, and then this right here, this is the actual original handbook from 2005 when World of Warcraft initially released. I bought the collector's edition and have that book still. So
yeah, and it's still played today.
Yeah, and so you can crack that open.
Is it still getting updates? Oh
yeah, they're still getting expansions. Yeah, and people actually go back and play the base form of the game because vanilla WoW is what they call it, right? Or classic. People still play that today. So open world games are great. We're talking a lot about them, but let's dive in and to get into some of the history a little bit, right? Because with this series, we want to kind of zoom in specifically on one style of game. We want to get a deep look at where it was, where is it now, what makes it unique, what makes it fun, what makes it engaging. And so we're going to go through that history, and then we're going to provide some like the core mechanics for the genre, and then look at some pros and cons and give you some of our recommendations. We've talked about a few games, and we'll probably recommend them, but we have some other ones as well.
Yeah, we definitely have some.
We have a list.
Other ones.
I'm excited to get to that, right? So history, let's go back in time.
Yeah.
Do you know what considered the first open world game?
Sure.
Sure, okay. Let me tell you, I was surprised by this, right? the Chinese-Japanese board game Go, all the way back from 300 BCE, is actually considered by many to be the first,
It's like over 2,000 years ago.
over 2,000 years ago, variation of an open world game. And I've heard Go, but didn't know what it was, so I did a little research. And essentially, you're on a grid. One person has white little pieces, the other one has black little pieces. You're trying to claim territory and get the most points. So in an abstract sense, the board is an overworld that you explore with your pieces to capture territory, right? Sounds familiar.
Risk.
Right? And what's really interesting, like you say, Risk, chess and Go over time evolved into war games.
Does Risk count as an open world game?
I think it would count as a overworld. So from the mechanics that you'll see here, it strictly doesn't count, right? But the overworld that you move around in, yeah, I would say so. I'd have to look. A lot of the mechanics we're talking about are specifically for video games, so there might be a little bit of different criteria for board games, right? But
I mean,
yeah,
there's always different criteria for board games. Board games are way different.
they're very different, but I would reckon it is, right? So, but that was a very nice segue, Risk there, because the chess and the Go, they evolved in the 19th century into wargaming, right? Like you said in Risk, you take your armies, you move them around this overworld map. It's typically not to scale, right?
Yeah.
And you are trying to defeat the other armies. And think about when Ron was on, and we were talking about the female war gamers, right? Yeah. Right. So war games, they had actual practical use, and that was the next evolution of using the overworld and evolving it into a realistic map there. And these war games, they got a fantasy aesthetic. They got the D&D treatment with the game.
We like fantasy.
Yeah, we like fantasy.
Probably a big chunk of that is from like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
Oh, absolutely.
Those are old books. You don't
Right.
realize it, but they're old.
Oh, they are, and we owe so much. Fantasy genre owes so much to those. And the game that specifically evolved wargaming was called Chainmail in 1971, and that's what added this fantasy aesthetic, right? That's what drew off of Tolkien's lore, the orcs and the elves, right? And evolved that, and from there, Dungeons and Dragons looked at that and was like, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do that, but you get to make everything.
Let's do everything, right? So Dungeons and Dragons released in 1974, and then later, in 1975, Empire of the Petal Throne released. These role-playing games that make use of the overworld map, which is
but one's definitely more popular.
one is definitely more popular, right? I had not even heard of Empire of the Petal Throne until doing this research, right? But it's cool that during the same period, people were taking these inspirations and how do we make a game out of it?
Yeah,
Right.
And in D&D, they also turned it into that.
Yeah, they made a simplified D&D board game called Dungeon. It's a fantasy board game where you can have little mini Dungeons and Dragons adventures on an overworld map, right?
Yeah.
And so as we evolve, right, the role-playing games looked at, the role-playing video games looked at what D&D was doing, older games with the war games were doing, and started implementing those maps into their games, right? And so in the 1980s, they're like, let's pull in these overworld maps, and they weren't to scale yet, like in the modern games, but that's when you see those starting to be incorporated into games.
Yeah.
Do you know what year and what game the first electronic open world game is?
1970s Sega's Jet Rocket.
Yes, and you were super excited about this.
Oh yeah, the name just sounded cool.
It sounds cool,
And
right?
also it's a projection thing, and I was like, is this on the Virtual Boy?
Right, kind of, and it feels like the Virtual Boy was inspired by this, because I was looking at pictures of it. It's a big arcade machine where it has the goggles like the Virtual Boy, right? You stick your head in, you're flying a plane in an open world.
Yeah, one's probably more popular than the other.
Right, but the first electronic example of an open world game where you're flying around, shooting targets, seeing the landscape below you in an arcade setting. So
Yeah.
later, they're like, let's bring these home. Let's just shrink them down into consoles. So the first open world video game was called Taito's Western Gun or Gunfight in North America, right? And this game specifically, each player is playing as cowboys. So the precursor to Red Dead Redemption, obviously, right? So you're playing as cowboys, and you're in the desert, and there's cactuses, and there are mountains and all tumbleweeds, and you're just moving around this open world map trying to shoot each other.
It's like fun.
It actually sounds like a pretty cool concept, especially how early.
Wait, what is it on?
I think it was on the Atari. I'd have to double check that. I should have wrote that in.
Yeah, yeah, you should have.
Yeah, we will. We'll fact check that after this,
that.
right? So we're finally getting into consoles here, and so later, in 1984, it evolved again, right?
Yeah.
So the first fully scaled, on-foot open-world games were Courageous Perseus and Highlight in 1984. I had never heard of those before.
I don't know.
I don't know. I looked them up, though. I looked up Highlight specifically. I'm like, what is that? Is that a chemical? What is
It sounds like
Doesn't it sound like a
it
Kleenex?
sounds.
Right? So I looked it up, and it looks a lot like Zelda, right? The Legend of Zelda that came out in 1986. You're moving through panels on the screen. As you move, the screen moves with you, and it's an open world scaled map. But it's not fun. It's not very well made, so Zelda's like, that's a good idea.
Let's do it better.
Let's do it better.
Because Nintendo's always copying people.
They are, and they're putting their own spin, making it great, right?
Yeah.
And thanks to that, and it's so funny, when we were starting the research for this, when we were coming up with the idea, I was like, what do you think the first one is? And you said Legend of Zelda, 1986. I was like, it might not be the first, but I think it's pretty important.
It's probably the most influential at this.
It probably is. And in my research,
It's probably where it like took off.
it is. It
Like, it was like
absolutely is.
here and then-
And you were like your intuition about that was correct, right? So in the research about this, I found that Legend of Zelda is by many considered the most influential open world game of all time. And any open world game after that draws inspiration directly from what Zelda set the framework as. Like, whoa. Right on, you did it.
Yeah.
You were right.
Yeah.
Props to you. And so the next big evolution, that's a pixel game. That's on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
It was limited by its time, but the next big leap forward in open world gaming was in 2001 with Grand Theft Auto 3.
GTA.
Right? GTA, yes. So GTA 1 and 2 were top-down, pixel, shoot 'em up games. Similar gameplay, but it was GTA 3 that was like, let's move that 2D, let's make a fully scaled
Oh,
world.
geez, I think there's a game that's like the original too that came out.
I don't know what you're
Hotline?
talking. Yes, Miami Hotline
Yeah, there
takes
it is.
direct inspiration from the original two
But it's a lot
GTAs.
newer.
It's a lot newer, right? So it takes inspiration on that and evolves it. So, and now we went through the 300 BC, and now
Or 2001.
2001.
It's 2001.
And where are we at now in the timeline? And what a lot of game reporters consider the next evolution is actually Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. They did it again.
Yeah.
Zelda did it again.
Zelda's always doing it.
So what Breath of the Wild did right, and the reason it's the next leap forward is because it introduced an innovative sandbox approach to the game, where you have, as a Zelda player, you have a lot of control over the world. It's not a true sandbox in the way Minecraft is, but it was a huge step forward. By many is considered a huge step forward in open world gaming. So here we are now.
Yeah. And with the new one coming out, I think it's going to influence
You think it's
again.
going to do it again?
Because from what we've seen, there's like 3 different maps
Really?
on,
Okay.
on top
3
of
layers.
each other.
Yeah.
a underground section, the normal overworld, and then the Sky Islands.
We're gonna have to come back and do an episode.
Oh, yeah.
About the game, right?
Oh, yeah.
See how much of what we're talking about here fits that role, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the history. We did thousands of years of history, but what is an open world game? I think we better get into that.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so I looked at a lot of sources, but the one that I really liked was called the Codex Gamicus, right? And
Interesting name.
it's pretty cool. They listed off 7 specific criteria for modern open world games. So we're going to go through those, and we're going to talk about them in terms of our favorite games. So you're going to talk about them in terms of Breath of the Wild. I'm going to talk about them in terms of Marvel's Spider-Man, right? So Spider-Man PS4, Spider-Man PS5, because that's one of my favorites. Right?
It's a good game.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so they said, there's not, a lot of people have different definitions. I thought this was funny. There's no consistent definition, but here's a good definition.
Yeah.
So let me read you that good definition that they provided, then we'll get into the criteria here. So, the most common usage of the term open world is a game that features free roaming outdoor exploration across a large game world that is fully scaled and continuous. I thought that was a sweet definition.
Yeah, that's Breath of the Wild for you.
That's really good. And on that note, I think it's time to send the first sheet. Woo. Okay, so we laid out the broad definition. Let's dive into the criteria here. And the very first criteria that we heard in the definition is a free roaming environment with limited restrictions on where the player can go and what they can do.
Yeah, like there's, with Breath of the Wild, you can go pretty much anywhere. You can climb on top of mountains. You can, let's see, there's a ton of like crevasses you can go into, but there is a like border of sorts, and that you cannot go past. It's basically a giant void, except for in one corner.
Okay. And what is the border? Is it like an invisible wall, or is it like a natural barrier?
Natural barrier.
Yeah, and
it's like the whole area is a raised plateau.
Okay. See, that's what a lot of open worlds make use of compared to linear games, where linear games you'll be on this track and there'll be an invisible wall, and you can see the map over there, and I want to go there. Open world's like, no, you can go there. It might not be worth it, but you can go there.
Yeah, but again, in that one corner, if you just go too far, you get lost.
Okay, that's cool. That's a cool way to make the border. So do you get lost, and then does it spit you back into bounds?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a really cool way to handle making a natural
wall?
Border, right?
It's either there's an invisible wall or it does that. Because I know it does that somewhere else in the Lost Woods.
Yeah, and a lot of these games will have invisible walls throughout, but they try to make use of more natural barriers. So I'm thinking about Spider-Man, right? And Spider-Man, for those of you who don't know, and who most everyone knows, right? It's set in New York, set in Queens, New York, and the game makes a scaled down version of New York. So the barrier that you have there is the water, right?
Water.
And because you can jump in the water, but like when you said you get lost in the woods, it'll spit you back out. If you jump in the water, it'll just spit you back into New York, right? And so, and I was remembering, like, what was the opening of Spider-Man? How long did it take me playing the game to actually be able to go swinging, right? The best part of Spider-Man, swinging through the city. And it took about 3 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 3 minutes. You do the opening cutscene as Peter. You put on your suit, you jump out the window, and then it says, "Hit this button and start swinging."
Yeah.
It's like it gets you in there. You look you can go everywhere, and it's telling you to go that way. But I experimented with it. You can go wherever you want, right?
And with Breath of the Wild, there is a tutorial area that you're not able to get off until you complete it, but it's still a big area.
Yeah, absolutely. And open world games often early in the game will have those limits to how players learn the game, right? Like Spider-Man, you have to open up these towers before you can reveal more of the map. And a lot of open world games will do that.
That's with Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's like
12 of them.
powers?
Yeah, I should have looked that up. I didn't count, but it's like in Spider-Man, you have to go hack in. There's a little hacking mini game, and then that reveals the map and what you can do.
Yeah, in Breath of the Wild, you have to climb up it for one, and you have to. There's this thing called the Shiga Slate. That's ancient technology, but it's like an iPhone at this point. It can take photos and do all sorts of stuff.
That's great.
But once you get to the top, there's this panel, and you hold it up to it. It will unlock the map for you.
Oh, very cool. Okay, so it's very similar mechanic,
Yeah.
right? But once those are all revealed, you can go anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's like in Spider-Man, that's the main appeal is this free roaming mechanic. You crawl on walls, you run on walls, you swing through them, right? It's great. And what I do the very first time I play one of these is I see the tallest building and I go and jump off of it. It just feels like a rite of passage in Spider-Man games. So.
Leap of faith.
Yeah, leap of faith, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the first criteria, free roaming in the environment. What is the next criteria that the game of Kiss?
An outdoor
Outlines.
environment, which accounts for a majority of the game's environment versus indoor environments like a cave, dungeons, buildings.
Yeah, so we're thinking like in Spider-Man, you're outside, you're in New York, and there are gonna be times when you go into buildings and have missions like that. There are gonna be times in Zelda, I'm assuming, where you go into dungeons and stuff like that.
I mean, yeah, there are the dungeons, but most other buildings you could just walk into, get what you need, walk out.
Yeah, exactly. And because of that, the vast majority of the gameplay takes place in a sprawling outdoor environment.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to be walking on the streets. I'm going to be meeting people. I'm going to be swinging through, seeing the cars, everything, right?
Yeah.
And there's sometimes when you go into the building to beat up a boss.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Like the first boss.
Oh, there you go.
Fisk. Kingpin?
Yes.
Kingpin. Same person.
Same person.
Same person. It's two different names, and it's always confusing
Well,
me.
like Kingpin's his villain name, right? And then
Yeah, but he
Wilson Fisk's his government name.
Whatever.
All right. Outdoor environment.
Wait, he's a government official?
No, everyone has their government name on their birth certificate.
Oh, I thought you meant. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, my brain's not working.
Actually, in some stories, he became government official, which was really bad.
Oh, so he became a double villain. Got it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we're derailing.
Anyway.
So the next criteria bleeds into this one.
Well, the past two.
The past two, it's a large world, right? And it's at least the size of a large city, so New York, or an island. And that's opposed to like smaller environments, little buildings, dungeons, small towns. And so these games that you see, these open world games are going to be sprawling. They're going to be huge, right? You're in Hyrule?
Hyrule.
Yeah, you're in Hyrule.
Which has changed so many times from game to game.
And I know I'm talking about Spider-Man right now, but thinking about like the Elder Scroll games.
Yeah.
Each one of those games takes place in a different region in this world. What is the continent called in Elder Scrolls?
I don't know.
That's a good question. Yeah.
That is a good question.
Yeah, anyway, each game, so Elder Scrolls Skyrim, you're playing in Skyrim. Morrowind, you're playing in Morrowind. Oblivion, so on and so forth.
In Genshin Impact, you're playing in Teyvat.
There you go. Yeah, that's a good example, right? So the large world with a lot to explore, right? So that being said, what is the next criteria for the open world?
Going back to the other ones, a fully scaled world.
So it's going to be consistent.
Yeah.
Right?
You can use the characters as a unit of measurement.
You said that during our pre-show. Is like, well, if we know that Link is, which we learned is 5'2", you can judge how big other characters are.
This character is
how much
4
is that?
Mario's tall.
How much is that in centimeters?
I don't know.
We should probably think about that stuff, right? But anyway,
Again.
this Link tall or this Mario tall. Mario might not be the greatest. Is Mario fully scaled? All of them?
He's different in every game.
Yeah, that might not be the greatest. But as long as it's scaled in the current game, right?
And in some games, he goes from this to this.
Yeah, exactly. But I like what you said of using your character as a unit of measurement. So Spidey, I think, is 5'11", 170 pounds. The weight doesn't matter, but the height does. So I can kind of immerse myself and know what it kind of feels like to be in New York.
Yeah, and Link is shorter than I am, 5'2", which shocked me.
Yes.
Because
Yeah, I'm shocked by that.
because like Zelda is, what was it, 5'10", 5'8", something like that.
Yeah, I think you said 5'6",
Okay.
right? So she's still relatively short.
But taller than
she
Link.
looks huge compared to Link. And so the scaling's going to be consistent. You know how big a car is by how much Spidey's standing next to it, right?
Yeah.
So that's
And it's also
very important.
And also, it's New York. You know what New York is like.
Exactly. And if
You know what
you've
a
never
city
been there,
is like.
you can, since it is scaled, you can kind of get a sense of what it is like to be there.
Yeah, and if you've been in a city,
Yeah, I've never been to New York, but I've been to Chicago. So when I play, I'm like, oh, this does feel like a city. That's cool, right?
I've been to Chicago.
I can't tell you the difference between Chicago and New York, but I can understand how it feels, right? And so after we're talking about the fully scaled world, the next criteria is on-foot traversal. So you can explore this whole world on foot. Like a lot of games require you to move from zone to zone through a loading screen, through
Which Zelda definitely has a ton
right.
of.
And the loading screens might look different. It might be like a horse, right?
Yeah.
It might be you on a boat or something like that.
Spider-Man's is interesting.
Yeah, Spider-Man is really
you're-
interesting, but it's called fast travel, which we did skip over, but we'll talk about I think this is a good point to talk about the difference right here, right? So a lot of games require you to move that way, but open world games give you the option to fast travel from point
Yes.
to point. And that's the difference here, is if you have the option to literally walk from one end of the map to the other, that's a core mechanic.
Yeah, Skyrim.
Yes, Skyrim, on foot, I did that the first time I played. It was like, how long will it take me to walk from here to
It's a
here?
wagon service.
Or Spidey, how long will it take me to swing from end to end, right?
Or with me, like, how fast can you go on your horse?
Yeah, exactly.
Get from the Gerudo Desert to the Kala Ancient Tech Lab.
How long did that take?
I've never done that.
You
But
haven't
those are
done
like
it? Okay.
complete opposite ends of the map.
Or thinking about Minecraft, you told me it took someone like 24 hours to get to the end of the map?
Maybe longer.
Maybe longer, because it's that
Probably days.
expansive.
But this was in an older version,
Yeah.
which was actually smaller.
Oh, really?
Like
So it'd
the
take even longer
Farland
now.
was a shorter distance. From
Okay.
spawn. And now it's
Now it's even, so maybe it'd take 2 days, 48 hours now.
several weeks.
Well, the last example we get is I think they'll get the point that you can go anywhere on foot, right? On foot or whatever
Horse.
transportation device you're using.
And in another
What is the glider?
paraglider.
The paraglider.
That's
Paraglider.
another Breath of the Wild thing, but I still can't believe this is in the game. In Breath of the Wild, there's a motorcycle.
Yeah, which is wild. You got motorcycles and cell phones. Okay, what time period is this?
It's like medieval Europe,
Okay.
but there's a ton of tech from a more ancient group of people.
I see. But it's a video game. We suspend
Yeah.
our belief.
Yeah, there's also giant robots walking around everywhere.
Exactly. The technology exists. And the last example I'll get is in World of Warcraft. One of the first things I do is just walk top to bottom, figure out the pathing between the mountains, and I die a lot because that's good level design.
Wow.
That's WoW. Each zone's going to have higher levels of NPCs, but I could still do it. I just have to do the death walk a lot. So that's on foot traversal. So once the next main criteria here.
A real-time world. So like the world moves without you moving.
Yes, yes. So there's time, right?
Yeah.
There's a day and night cycle. The NPCs are living, they're existing on their own.
In Breath of the Wild, each NPC has like a set path that they take each and every day.
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny.
That is pretty cool. So you can know, like, if I need to see this NPC, what time of day it is.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
where can I look? Where should I look for?
Same in Stardew Valley. I almost forgot what it was called.
So that being, yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
In Stardew Valley, I know that's a main mechanic.
Yeah,
Right.
and-
It's the day and night cycle.
And with their paths, again, they change depending on what day it is.
Oh, really?
And they change depending on what season it is.
That's so cool.
And they change if it's raining or not.
Really?
Yeah.
That is very cool.
It's a very good
That is
game.
a very good
Have you
game.
played it?
I haven't played it yet.
You should play
Is it multiplayer?
it. It is.
We should play.
Yes.
That'd be so fun. Okay, let's
Build
do
a
it.
farm.
Yes.
Share
let's
Discovery
do it.
Farm.
What was I thinking? So in Spidey, in Spidey, you
Spidey.
can sit there, you can sit on a wall, and everything will keep happening. The cars will keep driving, the NPCs will keep walking around, living their lives, going in stores.
Just remembered you can do the Spider-Man 3 thing.
What's that?
The emo Peter Parker dance
Oh, yeah.
walking down
You
the
can,
sidewalk.
You can, yeah.
I forgot that that's in the game.
You can, yes, absolutely. Now I think I might have to do that. I haven't done it yet, which is a fantastic little Easter egg that they put in there. And for those of you that don't know, the 2007 Spider-Man game movie that came out, there's a part where Peter, he kind of has like an emo phase, and he goes down, he gets new clothes, all black clothes, and
And a black suit.
And a black
The
suit.
Venom
Yep,
suit.
you're
The
right.
Venom
The
suit.
black Spidey suit, and then a actual suit to put over it, and he gets his hair flipped, and he does this really cringy dance.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. It's a great meme. And the memes are called Bully McGuire. If you look those up if you want to get lost.
I didn't know that's what they were called.
Yes, look those up if you want to get lost in a rabbit hole. So the last criteria, those were the first 6. The last criteria here for a mainstream open world game is a 3D environment.
Yeah.
3D graphics. It's all rendered real-time 3D, and the player can explore it in first person or third person.
I mean, I guess this one doesn't have to be applied to every game. Like the
doesn't.
original's Legend of Zelda.
It doesn't have that.
This isn't a requirement, unlike
That's like-
these other ones.
That's what I say for modern. A lot.
Oh, yeah.
Modern, right? So I think the mechanics that you see before here are more important, but modern ones are going to be 3D
Terraria.
graphics, right?
Terraria.
Terraria is 2.5D, so that even breaks the rules,
It is?
right? Yeah, so it's 2D and then it's 2.5 because you can interact with the background.
Oh yeah, place walls behind.
You can
yeah.
place walls behind. Yep. So.
Yeah.
So just to recap,
Barely played that game,
yeah.
so
Just to recap here, of the 7 criteria, we have a free roaming environment,
an outdoor environment
a large world,
and a fully scaled world,
on foot traversal,
a real-time world.
and 3D graphics.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one we can take it or leave it.
Yeah. You don't have to have it like some of the.
Exactly. And Terraria is a great example of that. So let's talk. We talked about our favorites. We talked about these games as our examples, but let's talk about some of the most popular.
Yeah.
games. Let's just list some off, and then we'll use those.
Some.
Yeah, well, I made a big list. Okay, go
Some.
ahead. You read half. I'll read half.
Breath of the Wild, GTA 5, Elder Scrolls 5, Skyrim, The Witcher 3, Red Dead 2, Fallout games, Elden Ring, Marvel Spider-Man, Genshin Impact.
Okay. My turn. We have Sea of Thieves, Assassin's Creed games, so the modern ones. Middle Earth, Shadow of War, Shadow of the Colossus, Divinity: Original Sin 2, Subnautica, No Man's Sky, Forza 345, World of Warcraft, and Minecraft. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
anyway.
it's Minecraft.
It's
right?
Minecraft.
That's the open world
It's
game.
Yeah, it's one of the most influential games ever. There's so
Yes.
many copies of it.
Right? It's the best-selling game of all time.
Yeah.
Right? But I thought I put Minecraft at the end of the list here because I think as I was doing this research, I think it's important to touch on sandbox. What does the term sandbox mean?
It's a kind of open world game.
And what we see is that a lot of people use the word sandbox interchangeably with open world, but it has its own implications, its own definition. So they will often use it incorrectly when it doesn't when an open world game isn't necessarily a sandbox, because a true sandbox game is where a player has the tools to modify the world and create how they play.
Again, think of Minecraft. You can destroy anything, almost anything. Actually, yeah, you can destroy everything in the game.
Exactly. So in a sandbox game, a true sandbox game, you're a god.
Yeah.
You control the experience. And I saw this in a YouTube comment, which was great, is like a lot of open world games are you're the protagonist. In the sandbox games, you're the god.
Yeah, you're a god.
And so,
which also translates to D&D.
Which does translate to D&D, right? And so you were saying that D&D is a sandbox, and I agree with that. And because the sandbox, I would say, is also on a spectrum. You have more and less tools to change your experience based on the game. So think about the dungeon master or the game master.
Yeah, the dungeon master is the god of that world.
God. You create everything. You control the experience.
You can TPK. Total party kill.
Yes, there you go. You can. And, you know, your players might not play with you again, but you controlled that experience because you're God.
Yeah.
But as a player, it's also a sandbox, just not to the degree as a DM is, right? Because you can still control your experience. You can interact with things in the environment. You can destroy tables. You can break down houses. You can do whatever creative thing you have, but you don't have the degree of control as the DM.
The DM is in the sandbox game. The players are in the open world game.
So just think about this, right? The open world refers to the lack of limits, right? The free roaming that we were talking about, that the player has in exploring the world, whereas the sandboxes are based on giving the player the tools to create freedom within their experience. And so all of that to say, open world games, a lot of them are sandboxes, but just because they're an open world doesn't mean it is a sandbox.
Yeah.
And a good example that we were talking about in pre-show with this was Skyrim.
Yes.
The base experience for Skyrim is purely an open world game. Right?
And a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, right? But you're playing the experience that the game developers are giving to you.
Yeah.
But once you give the player the ability to use mods, it becomes a sandbox open world
did you
game.
hear about the first mod?
No. What's that?
So it was like this really dumb one that added horse armor. Like horse armor. It did nothing.
Okay.
It was purely cosmetic.
Okay.
But Bethesda charged you money to use it.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
A mod? That defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
Come on.
They swiftly undid it once
good.
outrage.
Good. That's a good decision to undo.
Yeah, like you shouldn't pay someone to be able to mod your game.
Right. And I think, I don't know where I was going with that, but
Have
my
someone
favorite.
paid.
Yeah, they should. Mods should be a tool for the community for free to update the game.
Yeah.
And to their experience, right?
Unless you're hacking. No hacking.
But I will say before we move on for this, Skyrim mods. My favorite mod was the Goku mod. Someone modded Goku into Skyrim that you get to play as Goku, and they even made his abilities, right? The Kamea Wave, the Ki Blast, the Super Saiyan.
Yeah.
Yep.
My favorite is this streamer Doug. He likes doing like, if I say this, then 10 of this spawn.
Okay.
He did that in Skyrim.
Sure.
One of the items was cheese. If he said cheese, like 50 cheese wheels spawned on top of him.
How did?
And another one was dragon.
Uh-oh.
And trolls.
How do you not say dragons in Skyrim? That's a hard one. I could see you not saying cheese, but dragon's like the main thing.
He had to respond to TTS.
Okay.
Text to speech.
I see. Yes.
Yeah.
So Twitch is trying to trick him into saying those things.
Yeah.
I see. That's a fun challenge. I've seen Point Crow do that with Shrek.
Yeah, in Breath of the Wild.
Yes,
He actually got the mod from Doug.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
That's cool that they collab on that.
Yeah, they're actually pretty good friends.
Cool. And so I do have a couple more things to say about sandbox. Then we'll get into some of the common mechanics you'll see in open world games. So what I was seeing is, to know if it's a sandbox game, some common things to look for is the map procedurally generated? Right? Think about Ferrari, think about Minecraft, where you jump into the game and the game is generated as soon as you load in.
Yeah, using a seed.
Using a seed, versus Spider-Man, where the map is the same every time.
Yeah, and Breath of the Wild. Stardew Valley. My brain can't think right
That's
now.
okay. And then the last thing I'll say is that you can often tell it's a sandbox game if your character is just a blank slate, if they're not important. Right? In Minecraft, you're just Steve, right?
Steve or Alex.
Steve or
Those are the
main
base
character.
two. And then you can customize them out the wazoo.
Yeah, in Terraria, you're just a character, and
Same
you
with
get to shape the world, but
same
you're
with
not.
Stardew.
You're not the chosen one. You're not the Dragonborn like in Skyrim. You're not Link, right?
You're just some dude.
You're just some dude. So keep that in mind. I just thought that was important to talk about, because people use those terms interchangeably.
In Stardew Valley, you just happen to be the son of this person, or the grandson of this person who just died.
Okay.
And he left you his farm.
There you go. Right? You're just a person. You're like, let me embed myself into the story. So we've talked about the core mechanics, right? The mechanics that have to be there for it to be an open world game. But now we're going to talk about some of the common mechanics that exist across all open world games. The first one being collectibles.
Oh.
And these are things that throughout the game, whether it's trophies, achievements, unlockables, just in-game items that don't do anything, but you know you did something special to get it. I think in Breath of the Wild, isn't there like a golden turd thing?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay, so in Breath of the Wild, the main collectibles are the armor sets, the shrines, all 120, not counting the ones added in the DLC, and the Korok seeds.
Oh, wow.
There are 900 Korok seeds
Holy cow.
around the map. You have to do many little puzzles for them.
Wow.
And they're useful. You can trade them in with Hestu to get armor slots.
So that's very useful.
Yeah, but once you find all of them, you get the stupidest trophy ever. It does nothing. It looks like a pile of poop.
But it's golden.
No, it's not even that.
Oh, come on.
It's not golden.
Oh, that's
It's
funny.
like tan.
It doesn't do anything, does
It's tan and brown.
it? It's like, here
Why
you
does
go.
it exist?
You did it. That's funny. That's the developers messing with you.
Yeah, it is. I hope they're not in the next one.
You know
They're
they'll mess.
probably-
They'll mess with you somehow.
There's probably going to be more.
Probably gonna
with
be
the
more.
3 different maps.
Absolutely. So in Spider-Man, I'll talk the collectibles there. You get backpacks that he leaves everywhere. You take pictures of landmarks. You get different suits, right? And then there's all kinds of achievements.
Oh, there's also in Breath of the Wild, this is actually a main quest. It's the memories. Because you play as Link after a 100-year slumber.
Okay.
After he gets defeated in battle. And you wake up in the Shrine of Resurrection, yada, yada, yada. It's Hyrule 100 years later.
Oh, wow.
You've forgotten pretty much everything.
Naturally. Amnesia mechanic.
Yes. You barely know who you are.
Okay.
And as you play, you get to Kakariko Village, and you talk to Impa, who gives you the main quest, defeat Ganon. Or no, it's the Divine Beast quest.
Okay.
You get defeat Ganon earlier,
Sure.
I think. But you also get the Captured Memories quest, which you have to go around to a certain spot. You get photos of where they are,
Okay.
but you don't know exactly where they are.
Sure.
You just get like,
you get a little hint. Like,
Yeah.
Go here.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, and you get there, you interact with this glowing thing there, you unlock the memory. You
That's really
watch
cool.
like a little thing.
Yeah.
That's the memory.
That's so cool. That's a cool way to do an amnesia mechanic.
Yeah.
Add it as a collectible.
There's even one for each divine beast.
Oh, very cool.
That's not part of the captured memories one. That's separate, but it's still there.
Sure.
You can still watch them.
So there's a lot to collect in Zelda in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, there's so many armor sets.
All right, ready? Send it. So look for those, whatever game, open world game you're playing, a lot of them have collectibles. You went far on that.
Yeah.
So the next one is customization. And we broke this into two, right? We broke this into character customization. So what your character looks like, what armor are you wearing, right? What color is your gear, right? And to dye it. And then we also have play style.
Yes.
These are the two forms of customization that we see that you often have in these games.
Yeah, in Breath of the Wild, you have all these weapons, all these armors. You can even dye the armors.
That's cool.
In the dye shop.
Yeah.
Which, yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, in Spidey, like we have all these suits that we were collecting.
Oh, yeah.
And what's cool about the suit, if I'm remembering correctly, they all give you different stats.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is really cool. So
And
it's another
same with-
reason to collect them.
Same with a bunch of the armor sets in Breath of the Wild. Sure, some of them, you don't unlock them until you upgrade them at the fairy fountains, but still, like one is kind of required. The Flame Breaker,
Sure.
which allows you to go on Mountain Death.
Oh, okay, so that's required to beat the game.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I mean, you could just make a ton of or flame resistant food.
Oh, but that's so much effort.
I mean, you can buy 3 potions
Okay.
at the base of the mountain,
Sure,
but still, it's easier to get the armor.
I see.
The potions are there to get you where the armor is.
So like the character customization is like, I dye my gear as, right? you're generally gonna use the best gear, but you can make it look a certain way. And then play style is like the type of weapons you're using.
Yeah.
In Spider-Man, the play styles, they have 3 distinct ones. So you have your gadgets. You have actually 3 talent trees. You have gadgets that you can upgrade, and then you have web swinging, so how you're whipping the dudes around. Then you have just basic combat, or like acrobatic stuff. So look out for the customization you get. And like think about Skyrim. Like we can't change what Link looks like. We can't change what Peter looks like. But in Skyrim,
You create your character at the beginning of the game after, oh look, you're awake.
oh yeah, the classic gaming line. First line in a game, right? After customization, another core mechanic you're going to see is difficulty scaling. And I think this exists across a lot of genres, but I thought this was cool here. Oh yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, the playstyle for customization for Breath of the
Yeah,
Wild.
tell me.
You cut me off before I could talk about it. There's the you could do sneaky, which will you can sneak up on enemies and do a back strike, which will deal a 8 times crit.
Whoa,
Yeah.
huge.
And the funny thing is, most pros have this down. If you backstrike an enemy, when they stand back up, they immediately turn around to where you were. So if you walk in front of them before they
that's
do that,
cool.
they turn around,
Wow.
don't see you, and you can backstrike them again.
Come again, nice.
That's how
awesome.
most pros handle like the silver enemies.
Okay. That reminds me, in Skyrim, there's a calming spell where you could use it on a hostile enemy and they'll chill.
Oh,
You
yes,
just walk
use it on
behind them.
dragon.
You couldn't use it on a dragon, but you could walk behind them, stab them, calm them, walk behind them, stab them. I did that cheese on mobs it worked for.
Yeah, and then the other one, stealth.
Yeah, Spidey.
Stealth.
Yeah, Spidey actually does have a pretty good stealth mechanic. But what's stealth look like? And
That was the stealth.
That
This
was
is
it?
Stealth.
that's stealth. Okay,
Stealth.
so not much stealth there.
Blowing everything up
There you go. It's very stealthy.
with your
I
bombs.
think that's the opposite of stealth.
Yeah, that's why it's stealth.
Oh, okay. All right. Ready to move on to difficulty still?
Yes.
Okay, sorry to cut you off. Let's go on to difficulty. And you brought this point up. So what we were talking about in the pre-show is that there is difficulty scaling throughout your first playthrough, and then there's difficulty scaling on future playthroughs,
Yes.
right? So on your current playthrough in Spider-Man, like the mobs are going to get new weapons, they're going to get better armor, they're going to be bigger, there's going to be more advanced types. The bosses are going to make you use new mechanics, right?
Yeah.
And you were talking about how the bosses in Breath of the Wild, like they have health scaling.
Yeah. And the first two, they have normal HP. If normal, what they're originally having, like 800 or something like that. But after that, the next two, the game sees that you beat these two,
Okay.
so they, I don't know, double maybe the health of the next two.
Yeah.
Which is why you go to the Gerudo Desert before.
Okay.
Because then you can get the most cheese strat in the game.
Oh, yeah?
Urbosa's Fury.
Okay.
You do like a charged attack, and lightning strikes everywhere.
Ooh.
It stuns every enemy, including bosses.
Bosses?
Including bosses.
Bosses can't be stunned. That's super cheese. That's good.
Yeah, it is
Okay.
really good. And you get 3 of them, and it
Wow.
recharges, so you
Okay.
can stun lock Ganon.
What?
But it also,
Dang.
if you beat those 3, or the 4, when you get to Calamity Ganon, the Divine Beast will attack him, and you will lose half his health.
Okay.
So he only has like 8,000 rather than 16,000.
Sure. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's definitely worth
It's
going
worth
for
it,
the
yeah,
Divine Beasts.
For sure.
And if you don't, any of them that you don't
So
attack,
back to our collectibles, it's worth doing those
Yeah.
optional things.
and any of them you don't go and do, you actually have to fight the boss from that dungeon before you fight Ganon.
Oh, okay. Wow. So it's really worth it to do those earlier. So the game scales
Yeah.
as you go. The bosses are going to get harder. But there's a mechanic across a lot of these open world games called New Game Plus.
Master
Hard
mode.
Master mode. Yeah, master mode. Where you beat the game one time through and then you can play it again on a harder difficulty. So look out for that if you're someone who likes replaying games, if you like challenges. Then the last mechanic that we have outlined here, common mechanic, quests and objectives.
Yes.
And then we have main quests and side quests, which I think we touched on in the
Yeah.
collectibles, right? A lot of the collectibles you will get from side quests.
No. Well,
Or
I mean, the
side missions.
Captured Memories is a main quest.
Is it? Okay.
And actually, once you get the first one, you get Link's old shirt,
Oh, very
which is
cool.
actually a really nice shirt.
There you go. That's
That
awesome.
allows you to see exactly what HP your enemies are at.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
like-
that's
Like
helpful.
usually it's just
Yeah.
like a bar,
Just a bar.
but this one gives you the
Gives you
number.
the number. Okay, I would get that early in the game.
Yeah.
So these side quests, they might not be in your log, but it's just like side things you can do in the game. And oftentimes the games will be like main quest, side quest, in your log, in your quest log. So quest logs are often things in these games as well.
In the Breath of the Wild one, there's the shrine quests, which you do to unlock a shrine, like make it rise out of the ground.
Yeah.
Because most shrines, you can just walk up to it.
Sure.
Other ones, you have to like do a certain thing. One of them was
Do like a puzzle.
yeah,
Get it
shoot
out.
the glowing statue, which you didn't even need to start the quest to do. So
Yeah. So you're gonna have like the main quests that progress the story, the side quests that are just fun, and sometimes give collectibles or give like a nice. That shirt was a main quest, so that gave you a nice thing. But keep an eye out for the main and side quests.
and one of the technical shrine quests is you have to help a dragon out because
Oh, that's
there's
cool.
3 dragons.
Sure.
There's 3 dragons. They're more like Chinese dragons rather
Okay.
than Skyrim dragons.
Sure. Different aesthetic.
And it's covered in malice, which is the thing that's corrupting all of Hyrule.
Sure.
And you have to shoot the eyes on it to get rid of it.
Okay.
You have to do that 4 times, but once you hit it once, the dragon moves.
Oh, that's cool.
So you have to glide over there,
Sure.
shoot it again once the eyes open up again.
That's a fun mission.
It was a fun.
Yeah,
It's a
it sounds
boss.
challenging.
It's a boss fight, but it's a
Awesome
fun
guy.
boss
That
fight.
sounds super fun.
And then you get to shoot the dragon to get one of its scales. drop it in the water at the spring that's there, and it unlocks the
That sounds like
shrine.
a really fun mission.
It's a
Hopefully they include something like that.
Oh yeah, I hope the springs are still going to be there.
Totally. So I think as we close here, it's important for us to touch on a few pros, a few cons. We don't have much time to go deep into them, but I'll go through the pros. We'll touch on them a little, then I'll let you go through the cons. So the main pro that we had here was autonomy. There's no pressure gameplay. You can play how you want to with little limits. Free roaming. You can do your side missions how you want to. You can do the main mission. Sometimes I'll stay on side missions for hours, literally hours.
Or sometimes in like Genshin Impact, you have to do them in order to get the right adventure rank to progress.
Absolutely. And then so after that you have multiple play styles, which we've been talking about. Power fantasy. Feels really good being Spider-Man. Feels really good being Link.
It feels really good destroying
really good being the Dragonborn in Skyrim, right?
The Guardians are such a pain.
Yeah, it's immersive. You can get lost in the world, and they're super fun to explore. What about the cons? What are some of the cons that we have for open world games?
Sometimes the narrative can be lost. Like you said, you sometimes get stuck on side quests.
Yeah.
You go back to the main quest.
What was I doing?
Yeah.
Where was I? What happened?
I wouldn't say that for like Breath of the Wild because it's all really memorable.
It's really, there's a reason it's one of the best games.
I can remember a ton of it.
Yes, absolutely. But it's just like if they make the game too expansive, story can get lost.
And it can also get overwhelming.
Can get overwhelming. Yes, decision paralysis. What does Point Crow say?
Collector's anxiety.
Do you ever get collector's anxiety?
Hey guys, Point Crow here. Do you ever get collector's anxiety?
Some people don't like that much choice. It's overwhelming to them. I have to do everything. I have a friend like that who's like, I can't play those games. There's too much to do.
The Achievers.
The Achievers might like that, but I don't know, right? Like, that's a balance, if the Achievers like it or not. I guess it depends on your mentality of how you achieve, right?
Yeah.
And so that can be too much to do. And the next one I have, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Have you do it?
Worlds can feel empty and unlived in.
Yeah.
Which, there are towns all over Breath of the Wild, so again, I wouldn't say that for this.
Sure.
You encounter travelers on the main roads.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't say that for Spider-Man either, but an example of this is Dynasty Warriors 8. They made it an open world game for the very first time, and the way they did that is just made wasteland. It was nothing. There was nothing there.
So it's Fallout.
Well,
It's Fallout if it was accurate.
yeah. So, and the last con we have here is
Large worlds can lead to many bugs.
many bugs, many glitches in the game.
Thing is, some glitches can help, like the frickin' blue torch missions. Oh, I hate those.
Yes.
I hate those. But there's no way to item smuggle, so it tricks the game into thinking
You
you're
take
not holding
advantage
it.
of the glitches,
Yeah.
but sometimes if they're too big, it can break the game and make it unfun. Another example of that is Fallout 76, right? That was notoriously broken. No Man's Sky, notoriously broken when it came out. So that leads us into the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, notoriously broken. So as we conclude here, we just want to give you some good recommendations for starter games. So we have Minecraft.
Obviously. It's a
Very
good cheap
introductory
one.
game.
Like,
There's a
on
lot
your
of people
phone.
that love the game. It's on all of the platforms.
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild,
Breath of the
Spider-Man, the two we've been talking about all episode.
Fallout series
I think the Fallout series is really good. It's very immersive.
and Skyrim.
And Skyrim is a very good introductory fantasy game.
Oh yeah.
So that wraps it up. Do you have anything else you want to touch on here right at the end?
The outro question?
Oh, sure. We don't have too much time, but tell me what you learned here that you didn't know before the show.
Rocket Man.
Rocket.
Rocket Man.
Well,
Or
Jet Rocket.
Rocket,
Yes.
not Rocket
All
Man.
of the history is what I learned that I didn't know.
Where did I get Rocket Man?
I
Anyway.
wonder where you got that.
Anyway.
Thanks for joining us on this open world episode, guys. We want to give a big shout out to BCTV for letting us put this production on. Thanks for joining me, Xander. This was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, this was fun.
Great.
I guess to talk about one of my favorite games.
Yes,
so.
absolutely. So we're really looking forward to doing more of these genres. So if you have any questions, comments, you want us to talk about a specific genre, email us at shareddiscoveryshow@gmail.com.
You need to yell at Ron to get the Twitter up.
We do need to yell
Still.
to get the Twitter up. So as we close here, thanks for joining us on episode 7 of Shared Discovery. Please make sure to have some fun, be kind to others, and play some games. What
Be
you
good
gotta
people.
say? There we go. Thanks for joining us, guys.